John Wick, Chapter 4. It's directed by Stahelski, stars Keanu Reeves, Donnie Yen, Bill Skarsgård, Laurence Fishburne, Hiroyuki Sanada, Shamier Anderson, Rina Sawayama, Scott Adkins, Ian McShane, Clancy Brown, Natalia, Tena, and of course, the legendary Lance Reddick. May he rest in peace. So, if you haven't seen a Barrel Vision video before, you should probably know this is not what we normally do. And if you are a Barrel Vision viewer already, you would know that this is not what we normally do. So in both cases, I do apologise. But I felt particularly motivated to do this, and it probably could spark a surge in this type of content. I wouldn't say a surge. I just mean whenever I see a movie, possibly, which isn't all that often, right? But I felt particularly inspired to start this with John Wick 4, which I saw last night in theatre, or cinema as we call it in the UK. And I don't even know where to start. I suppose I start with how I feel about John Wick in general. John Wick is probably my favourite action movie franchise. Mission Impossible comes pretty close. I really do love Mission Impossible, and they're both sort of viewed as like paragons of action films, sort of two sides of the same coin. That coin being very high class action films. You have the hyper violence of John Wick, and you have the hyper stunts of Mission Impossible. It's about big set pieces and stunts. John Wick is about big set pieces in terms of hand to hand or gunplay, combat, and whatnot. And I've always appreciated that aspect of it. I will say though, something about the John Wick movies is sort of almost. I've become sort of deaf to it almost. I would say. I feel like some people have actually. The gun fu stuff wasn't quite cutting it. A lot of people after a while. I think some people felt like Chapter 3 didn't change enough, and it was almost too much. I think I disagree with that. I think the first two films have become more underwhelming as time has gone on for me. I still see and that's why I still see the franchise as one that's exponentially increasing in quality. I love the first film. I think the second was better, and I think the third one is the best of the three. John Wick 4, however, is easily the best one. Holy fucking shit, was this movie incredible. I literally don't know where to begin. I want to first of all just credit Chad Stahelski as this guy who sort of started on stunt work, and now he's like this extremely flourishing director who's doing these incredible, beautiful, violent films that combine beauty and violence in such an extraordinary way. And he's going to be going on to do incredible stuff like Highlander and Ghost of Tsushima and probably more John Wick movies. I couldn't be more excited. He's such an incredible filmmaker because this movie is gorgeous, and that is one of its major strengths as well. It's something that places it above the others. They're very well shot, by the way, the first three, obviously. They're actually beautiful movies, but Chapter 4 takes it to another level. Cinematography, of visual scope, the framing of the action, the colours involved, framing of every scene, in fact, it's just utterly gorgeous. Every set looks incredible. Every suit looks incredible. I'll get into that with Bill Skarsgård. It's jaw-dropping to look at. Everything is framed perfectly. Every set is perfect down to most minute detail. The colours and the lighting choices are immaculate. It doesn't make sense how a film cinematography can be this good. It's just jaw-dropping. It genuinely is. I mean, I'm quite easy to please, but I'm also very hard to impress. And John Wick 4 absolutely impressed me. So I had extremely high expectations going into this, though. I'd heard amazing things, right? I'd heard from a lot of people it's best of the franchise. I'd heard that it's just this masterpiece of action. And to say I was disappointed would obviously not be true, based on what I said. But there were points in the movie where I thought, this is not impressing me as much as I thought it would, but that's because I had such high expectations. I want to say that was only sort of in like the mid-section. I think the first act and the final act together are absolutely incredible, and the second act is only slightly below. And even then, it's not really even fair. There were just points where it was dipping slightly, but that's only because there perhaps wasn't as much going on, and that's fine. Because even though I might feel that way, this movie earns every minute of its runtime. I want to get right exactly how long it is. It's 169 minutes. So it's 2 hours and 49 minutes, which is how long I thought it was. It's a long fucking film. It's very long for an action film, but it earns every minute. There's no point, especially when you look towards the end, where you'd think this is where it's going to drag, right? No, absolutely not. The ending is what makes it worthwhile, right? I no doubts about that. So I want to talk about probably characters and then action, or maybe story first. The story is or maybe I should save some of that for spoilers. I'm not sure. Um, the story is probably the most engaging we've had so far, though. I mean, it definitely doesn't push John's character in a lot of different directions. You sort of know where he's at by the end of 3, and it sort of stays that way throughout 4, and it brings it into a nice close, I suppose. But it moves the other characters around in a way that's much more interesting than normal. We actually go to a lot more locations than normal in normal John Wick films. They tend to be very centered around New York. This film definitely had the most scope, especially with it ending in Paris. All the other films have ended in New York, I believe. So it's sort of it's nice to actually get away from America and go to some more I don't know, just better locations, I suppose. It's really nice to get that. But yeah, the story was easily the most engaging we've had so far. I'd say apart from the first one is the most emotional story, I'd say still. But the fourth one pushes the envelope of the world in a way where I didn't think it was really possible for it to get that much more interesting, you know? I feel like a selling point of John Wick has not just been the action all this time. I feel like the action is obviously a cut above almost everything else that Hollywood comes out with. But so is the world building too. You don't get this kind of world building in any kind of action film, really. It's such an interesting world to explore and be a part of. It's an extremely unrealistic world too. But, you know, after 3, I thought, okay, we've seen like things like The Elder and like John's family and whatnot, and you didn't think it could get any more interesting, but it does. John Wick 4, I think because it doesn't ram too much down your throat. John Wick 4, all the elements are introduced to extremely natural, and that's what made it so exciting, I suppose. So let's talk about characters. I did mention that John's character is fairly static, and I think that's true because he doesn't say a lot. I feel like if he did, then we'd get a lot more development out of him. But I feel like it's very internal. And I feel like there's a lot going on there, and Keanu Reeves displays that extremely well, as usual. I think he's... I don't even know if he's an underrated actor. I feel like he's been a bad actor, but he's not, right? He's almost like... I think I view Tom Cruise that way. I don't think Tom Cruise is particularly good in, say, the first Top Gun or the first Mission Impossible. But you look for, like... you look at Mission Impossible 3 and beyond, he's like this fantastic, dramatic chameleon, almost. I think Keanu Reeves is not as much of a chameleon as Tom Cruise, but he's so endemic to this role. I don't think anyone else could ever play John Wick. I think Keanu Reeves is 100% the right man for the job. Like, there's no other way anyone else could play this role. And I think the same goes for everyone else, because in my opinion, this probably has the best characters in the entire series, and that's thanks to a lot of the new characters that are introduced, such as Donnie Yen as Kane, or Shamier Anderson as Mr. Nobody / the Tracker. Amazing. Incredible characters who like have quite dubious motivations and sort of they're not really villains or heroes. I absolutely loved both of them. Like Donnie Yen especially just goes absolutely nuts in this movie, and his character is actually genuinely really emotionally investing, in fact. And he's also just putting on a show as usual. It's fantastic. And Shamier Anderson, who I've never like seen before in anything, he's absolutely awesome as this tracker. He's easily has one of the most interesting. Actually, that's the thing. You look at both Donnie Yen and Shamier Anderson's characters, and they bring to the table a very interesting new skill set. And you would say the same of Scott Adkins' character, who I'll get into in a little bit. I also feel like there was a lot more done with Winston this time around. Ian McShane's character, who has always been extremely important, has clearly had a strong friendship with John, but this time around he probably gets the most play, gets the most clear motivations for his actions, and that really comes through. In terms of other characters, I need to sort of maybe look at cast a little bit, because that's right, we have Hiroyuki Sanada as Koji, who is the manager of the Osaka Continental in... It doesn't actually say where. I think they're in Japan, I believe. He's great. Hiroyuki Sanada is an awesome Japanese actor. He's one of the best. I can't remember what else I've actually seen him in. Bullet Train. He was fantastic in Bullet Train, and he plays a very similar character. You get some great action scenes, and as well as his daughter, played by I want to get her name right, Rina Sawayama, as Akira, who is Koji's daughter, Hiroyuki Sanada's character's daughter, and she's like a. I know that they sort of the director Chad Stahelski sort of discovered her. I can't remember how. I think basically it was like they didn't actually know that she was a pop star, or whatever. But then when they found out, it was just, oh, so she can dance and she can do action. It's like, yeah, I guess so. And she's incredible in the like performance is great, and like action performance is great, which actually isn't surprised. I mean, dancing is choreography. Fighting on film is also choreography. It makes sense why those two go together. There's one more character I want to talk about, which is the Marquis the Marquis de Gramont, played by Bill Skarsgård, aka Pennywise, who's really great. At first, I was a little bit confused by his accent. I know he's meant to be French, but the way he said certain things like rules, he did it like rules. It's a bit odd. I settled into it though, and he actually gave a really great performance as sort of this entitled, extremely vanitous member of the High Table who just has a complete vendetta against the idea of John Wick. It was really cool. He's also got fantastic suits, really extremely flamboyant and over the top suits, I might add. One of them is literally made of glitter, but it was still really nice to see that this level of style, an elevated sense of style. I mean, that's sort of what the whole film brings. If we were to talk action, and the action is the best in the series. That's actually one of the things that makes it the best film in the series, is that the action is easily topping every other film. Almost every other action film, in fact. And it sort of starts right away. Almost from the first action scene, I'm like, yes, they got it. It's better than ever. And they keep that up almost the entire way, especially with the finale, which I'm actually going to save for spoilers. But the action, the filming of the action is done in a lot of different ways. There's actually a lot more characters involved in the action this time around. And like I said, I talked about characters like Kane and Mr. Nobody, Donnie Yen and Shamier Anderson. They both bring unique skill sets that make their action scenes stand out. And we get a lot more action scenes with characters who aren't just John Wick, which is really awesome. I don't really want to say any more without getting into spoilers. One thing I should say. I just almost got into it at the beginning. There's something about John Wick fatigue almost happened. Even though I think the third one's the best, I sort of got what a lot of people meant, how didn't feel like they were pushing the envelope that far every time. I think some people were concerned that number 4 was just going to be more of the same. And if it was, then there would have been a tiredness surrounding it. I just want to point out that, you know, Chad and Keanu have absolutely outdone themselves to a ridiculous degree that I didn't even think was possible, right? It's actually insane how much better, how different it feels to the other films, while also feeling like a John Wick film, right? And it's sort of like, there's this idea of you should stop while you're ahead, while you're in a good place to stop. But it's like, as far as I know, there was always a 5th film planned, and I really want to see that 5th film. And I think we probably will see it, because, and I felt that would be a good place to stop, because the thing is this series just keeps getting better. That's the thing. Why would you stop now? Yeah, so when they're able to outdo themselves by this much, I don't see why they couldn't do it at least one more time, basically. But I do think the 5th one should be the last one. In fact, you could stop at this one, and I'm going to go into spoilers now, so I'm going to give my rating for the film. I talked about how I love all the other films, and I think they get exponentially better. So if I were to give ratings, the first film would get an 8, the second film would get an 8.5, the third film would get a 9, and this one would get a 9.5 out of 10. Because it's not like a absolutely life-changing masterpiece like Lord of the Rings or something, you know. Maybe even Top Gun Maverick, I might give it 10 out of 10, I'm not sure. But I can't really pinpoint a actual flaw. So, except maybe there are points where I wish the action went further, but there's just so much of it, and it does stay extremely inventive that I can't really fault it truly. I just think I could have been slightly more impressed before the finale. So let's get into spoilers though. So, okay, yeah, spoiler alert for John Wick Chapter 4. John dies. Obviously, he's not dead, right? But, like, you know, he's not dead. We didn't see him pass away. Obviously, we saw him get shot. We see the grave, but the deliberate cut between those two moments, the fact that you don't see John actually die, means that he's not dead. I feel like that's just a rule of film. It's also John Wick. I mean, I don't think it's possible for him to die, frankly. So there's always that, you know, going for him. It also means, I think the reason they didn't show him dying is so that they could keep him alive if they wanted to. I think that he deserves to be alive. I feel like it's actually really interesting that he does actually truly get out by the end of this film, which is sort of what it's all been building up to this point. And the fact that that happens. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens actually. Like, right, if we go right to the beginning, we have Trevor, Lance Reddick's character, fortuitously dies, is killed by Bill Skarsgård's character, which is obviously slightly saddened me to see Lance Reddick's character die so soon, given his recent passing in the real world. But either way, it's used to great effect to actually provide motivation to Winston, who is easily a more interesting character this time around, even though he's always been one of the best. We also have Kane, which is obviously Donnie Yen's character, who is blind, and he has a daughter who acts as his motivation. The Marquis de Gramont, is that de Gramont? I'm not sure. Yeah, Marquis de Gramont is using his daughter as sort of leverage to get Kane to kill John Wick, even though they're old friends. And Kane actually ends up killing Hiroyuki Sanada's character in a really epic katana duel, actually. Although I do think Hiroyuki Sanada's character's actions are somewhat selfish. He does get himself killed in front of his daughter, arguably for no good reason, but he does have this incredible sort of philosophy and this incredible line. Friendship means very little when it's convenient, where he's just like, he believes very strongly in friendship. He's friends with John, so he harbours John at his hotel, despite the fact that he knows that the table will come for him, because he understands the value of friendship and how it's not, if he were to just turn John away just because it would put him in trouble, that wouldn't make him a true friend. And I thought the sincerity of that really shone through, and his character, Koji, was a really nice character, actually. It was a shame to see him die. Not that Kane isn't a nice character, he actually is an extremely sympathetic character. And he is sort of used by the Marquis de Gramont, and he grows exponentially more tired of being used, and eventually him and John do team up to get to this point where they can have the duel that they've been sort of set up to have. And in the duel, John actually ends up killing the Marquis, of course, which is actually very cleverly done. They have it so they have a duel with two flintlock pistols, and they start at 30 paces, which seems a bit unfair on a blind man, you know. And then I think Kane misses, but John hits Kane in the arm, and then they get closer. I think they both hit each other, and they get closer again, and then Kane hits John in the stomach. John doesn't fire, which I didn't notice. I didn't notice that John didn't fire, which means when he shoots the Marquis, it's not against the rules, which I thought was really great, by the way. I had this feeling, because you've got this sense of also, I don't know if I've actually been ascending slowly as it's just gone on. You get this sense of tiredness growing in both of them, especially in Kane, just wanting to get out. He's just really angry that he's been brought back in because of his daughter being used as leverage against him. I just assumed that they were just both going to break the rules and just kill everyone. But the fact that they did it within the rules and they both got out legitimately, actually really, really satisfying to see. And I want both of them to come back, frankly. Kane's still out there. If something came up again, if we have a fifth film where John Wick somehow ends up in even deeper shit, I'm sure that friendship has been reinvigorated and Kane would come out of the woodworks again to help him. Although he wouldn't deserve it, frankly. He'd deserve to stay happy and keep his daughter safe, frankly. So maybe that's not the best thing to do. In terms of action, the first set piece is in the Osaka Hotel, which was absolutely beautiful. You also have actually, there's not much to say about that. It's just a really fantastic action scene. It's where we first get introduced to Donnie Yen's sort of fighting style. There's this moment where he spins his arm and then uppercuts someone on a table, and that's when I was immediately thrown into the action. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want. This is incredible. And then I suppose I would probably jump to sort of the midsection, where the midsection actually picked up for me because it was somewhat waning in terms of interest until we got to Killer, which is Scott Adkins' character, who he's wearing a fat suit. He plays this incredibly entertaining character who can fight despite his size very well. And that was an extremely entertaining scene. John gets some throwing axes, some tomahawk action. It was just thoroughly entertaining and just beautiful to look at. I mean, it was just gorgeous. But I actually want to jump to the ending sort of action scenario, where it's actually a classic sort of citywide bounty hunt for John, but it's sort of being narrated by this woman acting out of the table sort of office in the Eiffel Tower, and she's sort of DJing essentially this manhunt for John, and it's extremely entertaining. And there's the stuff around the Cirque de Triomphe in Paris, and like a car chase around it and like a shootout around it between moving cars, and it's just mind-boggling. And then they actually like continued for another like 30 minutes, just going through buildings. There's like fireworks shotguns. There's like, I saw this in the trailer, the fireworks shotguns, right? And then you see these guys sort of loading up their weapons, and they have these like shotgun shells, and it says like Dragon's Breath on the boxes. And it's like, I think I know what that is. And then they get them, and it's just like fucking like incendiary compound, or something. Like, have to relate it to Deep Rock somehow. And they just shoot fireworks out, and it sets people on fire. And then they have a scene where John gets a hold of that, and then the camera goes overhead, and he's sort of making his way through this building as the camera sort of pans overhead, and it's just this incredible top-down view. It's like an extremely unique perspective on action that you don't really get in film, and it was just fucking incredible, right? It's just so satisfying to watch. And there's them making their way up the staircase where John just kills everyone trying to get up the staircase, and he gets stopped, and he gets kicked down the staircase, and he just keeps rolling. It just gets so excessive, and it is actually like a very good sort of bit of practical comedy, a physical comedy. Another one would probably be, well, obviously Kane and John sort of team up at this moment to get to the duel, so it doesn't get forfeited. And then as soon as like, well, I suppose the marquee is like Kane's sponsor for the duel, and Winston is John's sponsor for the duel. And then when the marquee sort of comes up to like give Kane a few words, Kane just immediately says "fuck off" or "fuck off" just immediately, and it was easily one of the funniest things. Donnie Yen is just such a class act. I've loved everything that he's ever done, pretty much, that I've seen. And that, no different here. It's probably my favourite character I've seen of his, actually. And I think that's actually all I've really got to say about John Wick Chapter 4. I mean, every element of it came together. There's so much going on. It's such a long film, and yet all of it feels earned. Every action scene differentiates itself and pushes the envelope even further. The final sort of 40 minutes is some of the best action filmmaking maybe the best action filmmaking I've ever seen. It's just so unbelievable, and I can't praise it enough, really. Sounds like I should give it a 10 out of 10. It didn't like do as much for me as a 10 out of 10 would, like a 10 out of 10 is like kind of gonna make me cry as well. John Wick 4 didn't make me cry. John Wick 4 made me excited, which is different, I suppose. Either way, I'm pretty confident in 9.5, even though I have almost nothing but praises to sing about this movie. So either way, that was my review for John Wick Chapter 4. If you enjoyed this type of content, please make sure to let me know. I can't necessarily just keep it up, because I'm not just going to review the odd movie I watch. I'm not just going to review every TV series I've just watched. I don't feel like I could really be bothered to do that. But every film I go see that's new, I would actually happily do this for. I almost wish I did it for Top Gun Maverick, because that was just a masterpiece, right? But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it here. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Obviously, if you did, please let me know. And if you did, please make sure to like, subscribe, and buy yourself a fried chicken sandwich. I might do that from now on. I might say that at the end. Buy yourself a fried chicken sandwich. You deserve it. Right. Take care, guys. Peace.